consider buying your processed oboe and bassoon cane from those friendly folks over at Barton Cane. Processed with care and precision for your everyday reed-making needs. Take the pain and injury out of reed-making by letting Barton Cane do the hard, repetitive, boring stuff. Free up time for practicing, happy hours, hikes, baking, and spending time with friends and family. Barton Cane, here for you. Visit www.bartoncane.com.
Specializing in the finest assortment of oboes, clarinets, bassoons, and their accessories, RDG Woodwinds serves musicians around the world. Their employees are all professional musicians who have a deep knowledge of the products that they sell. RDG's repair shop has an international reputation with a combined 100-plus years of service among the 5 repair technicians. Plain and simple, RDG provides excellent products and fabulous customer service. Visit them at rdgwoodwinds.com. They look forward to working with you.
Hi, I'm Galit Kaunitz.
And I'm Jackie Wilson, and you're listening to Double Reed Dish,
a podcast for oboists,
bassoonists,
and the people who love them.
Wonderful time of the year.
Ooh, yes. That either sound like a scary person or a creaky door. Either way, I think it goes with the theme.
Y'all, it is Halloween reed decorating contest season.
This is like, it brings me so much joy.
This is the best time of the year, truly. Yeah.
Truly.
This is the last one, everyone. It's the last one. So this is October 1st, coming to your ears on October 1st.
Yes.
You have the next 15 days to come up with the most epic reed decorating you have ever done.
The most detailed, the most hilarious, the most impactful. You got to be in it to win it. So it's the last. It is also the biggest. We are going out with a bang. You are not going to believe these prize packages combined over, what did we say? $1,300, $1,400 value.
Yes.
I'm laughing because we'll just let the listeners in on it. There's a slight delay today, and so the rhythm is a little off. I'll fix it in post, but if you're like,
I'm talking and then Jackie's reacting to it like 6 seconds later.
Is there a weird tension going on between them? No, we're not in a fight. We just have questionable Wi-Fi right now, so just chill out. Okay, so our prizes brought to you by AC/DC Reeds, Barton Cane, Chemical City Double Reeds, Janet Ingle, Jiffy Reeds, Cassandra Bassoon, Midwest Musical Imports, Mountain Peak Music, and Wildflower Reeds. This is our biggest prize package yet. So what if we start by going over the prize packages? We have 4 prizes possible total. Galit, can you talk us through popular vote winner oboes prize package?
All right. So the popular vote is exactly what it sounds like. Our followers on social media will vote for their favorite entries, and the entry with the highest number of votes will win the popular winner oboe prize package. Here it is. A $100 gift card to Barton Cane, a $50 gift card from Chemical City Double Reeds, a $25 gift card to Midwest Musical Imports, a $15 gift card to Mountain Peak Music, a big honkin' bundle, 10 stickers of your choice, plus the In My Honk Era bumper sticker of your choice from Cassandra Bassoon, a copy of Janet Ingle's book, The Happiest Musician, How to Thrive in Your Creative Career, 2 blanks, a bundle of shaped cane, and a cake of beeswax from Wildflower Reeds, an oboe reed print greeting card 4-pack from AC/DC Reeds, and a hoodie of your choice from the Double Reed Dish store. Overall, an over $300 value prize.
I want to win that. I'm kind of sad we're running this contest because I want to win all of these prizes. I'm so jealous. So the popular vote bassoon package, very similar. $100 gift card to Barton Kane, $50 gift card to Chemical City, $25 gift card to Midwest Musical Imports, $15 gift card to Mountain Peak Music, the same big honkin' bundle from Cassandra Bassoon, Jenna Ingalls book, a one pro reed from Jiffy Reeds, 2 bassoon reeds, and a contra bassoon reed from AC/DC Reeds, and the hoodie of your choice from the Double Reed Dish store. Valued this package at over 400 buccarinos. OMG. But what if you're not the most popular? What if you're not like the Regina George or Caddy Heron of the contest? Do you have any hope still, Galit?
Yes. You know why? Because this is our podcast, and we have decided that we will each choose a podcast choice winner for oboe and podcast choice winner for bassoon because we feel like it. Here is the prize package for podcast choice winner oboe. A $100 gift card to Barton Kane, a $50 gift card from Chemical City Double Reeds, a $25 gift card to Midwest Musical Imports, a big honkin' bundle from Cassandra Bassoon, a copy of Janet Ingalls' book, The Happiest Musician, 2 blanks, a bundle of shaped cane, and a cake of beeswax from Wildflower Reeds, an oboe photo print and blackwing bassoon pencil from AC/DC Reeds, and a hoodie of your choice from the Double Reed Dish store, and over $300 value.
Oh my gosh. And because it is our podcast and not yours, we will be choosing not only a winner on oboe, but we will also be choosing a winner on bassoon that we like, and they will get $100 gift card to Barton Reeds, $50 gift card to Chemical City Double Reeds, $25 gift card to Midwest Musical Imports, the big honkin' bundle from Cassandra Bassoon, a copy of Jenna Ingalls' book, a pro reed from Jiffy Reeds, bassoon reed print greeting card 4-pack, and a blackwing bassoon pencil from AC/DC Reeds, and the hoodie of your choice from the Double Reed Dish merch store, also valued at over $300. This combined value, holy moly, our sponsors showed up for y'all.
Yeah, we are so grateful for the Double Reed businesses that are making this happen. Last one, best one. If you have ever thought about participating in the past, this is your last chance to do it. We want to see it.
That's right. And you don't have to fly solo. We have had studios submit entries in the past. Friends collaborate on entries. That is 100% fine and encouraged. There's strength in numbers. And yeah, you have it be something fun that you get together and do with your Double Reed friends. And so if you want to enter, we need to go over the rules. Okay. So the main part of each entry must be an oboe or bassoon reed. And by the way, if you're looking for inspiration, all of the previous year's entries are still on our social media. So you can check out some of the stuff that's been successful in the past. Reed decorations should be Halloween inspired. That can be literal, or people take that in a lot of ways because Halloween has to do with costumes. So they'll dress up their reeds in whatever costume they feel so inclined. The contestants can draw, paint, or adhere objects to the reeds. We've had impaled reeds before. So yes, you can do whatever you want to those things. Maybe after a concert, not before.
Yeah, don't do it to your Goodreads.
Each entry must have a title. Don't forget this one, y'all, because I have had to like email people and chase down them for their title, and like just submit it with a title. And then be creative, but keep it tasteful. If our discretion feels we're up against a line or have crossed it, we're gonna give you the axe. So Galit, I have an idea. I want to enter. How do I do it?
That's a great question, Jackie.
You should probably know. It's your contest.
Okay, I found it. Take a picture of your decorated reed. Email your entry to doublereeddish@gmail.com no later than October 15th, 2024. Our followers on social media will vote between October 16th and October 30th on our social media, and we will announce the winner on Halloween.
Just in time to get all that sweet cane and those reeds for your jury.
You could mark up your music with your Blackwing bassoon pencil.
That's right. Like, our sponsors are here to help you get through the end of your semester successfully. So, yes, don't miss out. This is like so many people like look forward to it. Even non-double reed players, like I'll have trombone friends be like, "Oh, that one entry," you know. So, yes, join. We want to have the most participants ever for our, last bash. And so, yeah, get to work and get to submitting, and we will see you on the 16th for these amazing entries.
I mean, you got to make reads, but this time you got to make like scary reads.
Yes.
But like scary in the Halloween way, not in the playing way.
Yes. Could say. AC/DC Reads is a one-woman bassoon reed workshop in Minnesota run by Dr. Ariel Detweiler, producing over 1,500 reeds per year. Selling beginner bassoon reeds, advanced bassoon reeds, and contrabassoon reeds, AC/DC Reads are hailed by customers for their even intonation, ease of response in all registers, warm tone quality, and strong low register. Every reed is made from tube cane processed in-house to Ariel's specifications using Rigati or Lavaro cane and a Rieger 1A shape. You'll also find bassoon-themed gifts in the shop, including greeting cards, stickers, artistic prints, and the ever-popular Blackwing bassoon pencil. Make sure to follow AC/DC Reads on Instagram, where Ariel posts artistic photos and educational stories about her everyday experiences with reed making. AC/DC Reads is a proud sponsor of Double Reed Dish, sharing positive and uplifting interviews to inspire and connect the bassoon community around the world. Find AC/DC Reads at www.acdcreads.com or at retailers like Chemical City Double Reeds, Midwest Musical Imports, or Reed Supplies Canada. Try out AC/DC Reads today and let the reed do the work.
Chemical City Double Reeds is a full-service double reed shop specializing in the sale of instruments, cane, accessories, and sheet music. Double Reed Dish listeners can enjoy free shipping with code DRDISH. Visit them in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or online at www.chemicalcityreeds.com. We are thrilled to welcome to the podcast Daniel Matsukawa, Principal Bassoon of the Philadelphia Orchestra and faculty member at the Curtis Institute of Music and Temple University. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. I really am honored and appreciate you asking me to be here today.
Well, we are honored that you're here with us. So we love to start by asking our guests how they came to play their instrument. So could you please tell us about your origin story with the bassoon?
Sure. What I could do is I can give you a very quick outline of my musical history. I actually started singing in a boys' choir when I was 5, and I really, really wanted to do that. My oldest brother, I'm the youngest of 3, he had come back with my dad and told me about this rehearsal that he went to, and I was really curious about it, and I begged if I could go to the next rehearsal, and I then immediately begged the choir master if I could join, and they said, sorry, you have to be 7, but I wouldn't. I don't want to say I was kicking and screaming, but maybe in a way I was kicking and screaming and wouldn't take no for an answer, and then they had me audition, and then they made the exception, so I joined when I was 5, and I was singing for a number of years. And just around the time when my voice was cracking, I ended up going into, I formed a punk rock band. I played guitar, and I was the lead guitarist and lead singer. I did that for a few years, but towards I would say just around that time when I was 13, I heard the bassoon on a radio one day. I don't remember the piece, but I remember the announcer saying that that was a bassoon concerto, and I absolutely was taken by the sound. I fell in love with the sound, and I immediately ran to my parents later that evening, and I was like, "Oh, I think I want to play bassoon," and they were like, "Anything is better than that loud stuff that you're playing right now. That's, peeling the paint off the walls." And mind you, I lived in a tiny, tiny apartment in Manhattan, New York. We did not have a garage, so it was not a garage band. So I'm sure I was driving everyone crazy. So that was how I came to learn about the bassoon. I went to the band director, and I asked if they had a bassoon, and to his delight, he said yes, they did. And so that was the beginning. And then I started taking formal lessons in high school.
So, how and when did you start to think, oh, this is something that I want to do professionally?
I think music, I mean, it's one could say it's a cliche, it's like, oh, music has always spoken to me, and it always did grab me. And I think I won't lie, even when I was doing my rock band, I actually thought this was it. This is what I'm going to do. I'm gonna, and it's not like, oh, I'm gonna become a rock star. It wasn't like that. I just knew that I wanted to do music in some form, shape, or another. And I think once I started learning the bassoon and I was in an orchestra, I remember that feeling. I always say this, we have the best seat in the house. We're right in the center of the stage, surrounded by other winds and brass percussion behind us, and a sea of strings in front of us. So I'm literally like everything is surround sound. And I just remember that feeling the first time being in an orchestra rehearsal. And I think that was it for me. That there was no looking back. I think that was the moment where I was like, this is what I want to do.
Would you walk us through your training and educational journey and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So the first time I played bassoon, again, it was from my local school. I went to all public schools, and they had an instrument, and the band director, I remember him sort of putting me in a room, and I had to sort of figure out how to put it together. I'll never forget those. I think it was like called Bill and Mill's book, and how to play the instrument, and it teaches you one finger E, and then put two fingers down, and that's the D, and then C. And I remember even just the first few days, oh, I can now play Mary Had a Little Lamb, just on those three notes. And I think for me, having that sound in my ear that I had heard on the radio stuck with me, and I did not want to look backwards, or I didn't want to give up. I was like, that's what I want to sound like someday. And I kept at it. And at that time, we had to pick a high school, and I auditioned for the Performing Arts High School and Music and Art. Those are two separate schools. And I was accepted into both, and I went to Performing Arts because my friends at the time, there was a famous TV show and a famous movie called Fame, and it was based after the Performing Arts High School. So I was like, oh, I
Oh,
want to do,
that's cool.
yeah, I want to go there. And I remember throughout a lot of those episodes, it's always like the dream is to go to Juilliard kind of thing. And so I got into performing arts. I went there, and then once I started high school, they said, well, you're required to take lessons. And they introduced me to someone at the Manhattan School of Music Preparatory Division, and I had my first bassoon teacher there. His name is Alan Futterman, and he was amazing and really great for me, especially at that time. And in fact, to this day, he's the only teacher I ever had who played in my lessons. So after 2 years there, I ended up going over to Juilliard Pre-College, where I studied with Harold Goltzer. I'm very grateful to him as well. And so I was under him for 2 years in high school, and then I went to the Juilliard School, continued my studies with him for 2 more years. And then I transferred to the Curtis Institute of Music as a student. And there was no opening during my senior year in high school or my first year in college. And finally, there was an opening during my sophomore year, and that's when I applied. And then I went to Curtis. I studied with Bernard Garfield, who I'm also very grateful for. And Harold Goltzer had already been retired from the orchestra, so he hadn't sold his instrument, so I never heard him play in a lesson. And Mr. Garfield, again, who was great and still played in the orchestra. I think by the time I studied with him, he was in his late 60s. But he was the kind of teacher, he never brought his instrument to a lesson and took out his instrument to demonstrate things. It was always, he would just come and mostly just give feedback, and I did all the playing. So, but I think having Alan Futterman in those early years, especially at that age, and he did play a lot in my lessons, I think that really had a tremendous impact on me and was a really great thing for me to get my feet wet and get started and get off the ground.
Can we hear about embarking on your professional journey and finding your way to the Philadelphia Orchestra?
Sure. So during my last year at Curtis, just before graduating, I had won a one-year position with the Memphis Symphony Orchestra as principal bassoon. And then after that, I reapplied to Juilliard Masters, and I was about to go back to school to get a graduate degree. And at that point, there was another one-year opening at the Virginia Symphony, and I had won that audition. And so then I ended up, instead of going back to school, I decided to just stay on this track of getting more experience as an orchestra player. Then after that, I played in St. Louis Symphony for also one more year. I had like 3 1-years in a row. And during that year, Virginia Symphony had opened and they called me and they just offered me the position to come back permanently. So I went back for another year and a half before winning my position as principal bassoon with the National Symphony Orchestra in Washington, D.C. And I played there for 3 years before finally getting to where I am now in the Philadelphia Orchestra. So my friends all tease me saying that I literally worked up the ladder. I do have a couple of colleagues who got into the Philadelphia Orchestra right out of school. And for me, I call them like LeBron James, and, they just went right into it. And, but, I really am very appreciative and grateful for all those important steps. I honestly believe, and I would say this, I would not have been able to I'll put it that way, I handle my position right out of school. I really, there's no way I think I could have handled that. And so I really grew a lot. I learned a lot in those formative years, especially Memphis and Virginia and St. Louis, and then of course National Symphony. So and I don't mean to call them like, oh, they were stepping stones, and I certainly don't mean to make them sound like, oh, they were a lesser or lower orchestra. I don't think of it that way. They were all really great, and the colleagues were all amazing along the way. And I definitely picked up a lot of things from here, there, and everywhere.
I have a follow-up about that. So we know that, the smaller orchestras, even the large orchestras tend to struggle financially, have some contentious relationships with administrations and boards, and we have seen some instability, especially in the smaller orchestras with smaller budgets, and that has an implication for the musicians who need to work their way up the ladder in order to learn the things that you're talking about and gain experience. So I'd love to hear your perspective on, what you learned on your journey through all of these different positions in different orchestras, and maybe what modern musicians need to do now to prepare for, this kind of compressed marketplace.
That's a fantastic question. One thing I don't think they necessarily teach us at school while we are students is, well, first of all the different committees that there are in ensembles and orchestras. There's a orchestra members committee, there's an artistic advisory committee, there's an education committee, and so forth and so forth. And I did not learn about any of those things until I got to set orchestras. And I definitely learned a lot, as we say this, you learn a lot on the job, and you start to learn the the inner makings, the inner workings of how orchestras function. And I was often, I would say this word lightly, but not in any sort of aggressive way. I was disheartened because it often felt like musicians against management, and I don't like that word. I always feel like at the end of the day, we're on the same team. And at the end of the day, don't we all want to just be better, do better, and give our audiences the best, experience that we could give them, so that they, I recently just finished watching The Bear, which is on Hulu. It's a really great show if you're not familiar with it, and I absolutely love this show, and the acting is amazing. But there's this one episode called Forks, and in this episode, there's one character, his name is Richie, who, and sorry about my, the listeners out there, I'm sorry to, spoiler alert here. I'll just say that in this episode, Richie, who was sort of a struggling character throughout the first, 1.5 seasons, made a great, there was a turnaround in him. Like and I can tell he was frustrated. He always felt like, in a way he was a nobody, but in a way, as a result, he had to put up a front and act like he knew everything. And so, but I think he always had this insecurity about him. But then he had this great experience in a restaurant where they sent him off for a week. And the transformation, I mean, I honestly cried in this episode. And it just, the change in him, the change in his eyes, and how he saw himself, and now how he immediately then viewed himself as like, oh, I know what's important now, and I know what needs to be done. And then one other character in that particular episode, there's this person working front of the house, and it's quite intense, and it's like a really, really great restaurant, like 5-star Michelin kind of restaurant, and he's just standing there observing this person, and he's like, why are you doing this? This is like it's so much work and intense. And what she said really stuck with me. She said, because, no matter what, every night, at the end of the night, we had made someone's day. And I was like, yes, that's what it should be like for us. Like people, I know some audience members who drive out to come to our concerts, and like 2 hours, and they're so excited and beyond like riveted and thrilled to be there. And the way they react and respond to the performance afterwards, we've become like friends over the years. And I just feel like, in a way, this is what I guess that episode spoke to, this very thing of like, yeah, I want us to believe that we have made someone's day, at the end of the night. And that's not a boastful thing. That's not a braggy thing. That's just more in terms of like what we do is really for having a greater audience experience and giving them a greater audience experience. And I learned recently that so much of it is not even about programming. It's about the experience itself, and that some audience members fear of like being shamed if they like, should I not clap in between movements? And they don't want to come in and enter the concert, and be a latecomer, and be given, embarrassing looks and things like that, or they have to like try to read the program, when the music started, and they don't know much about it. And some non-musical friends of mine always say to me like, oh, I don't want to come here to the concerts because I don't know anything about classical music. And I tell them, you don't have to know anything about the music. You just come and just bring your 2 ears. That's all you really need to do. And they would say, well, but isn't it for the well-educated? Isn't it for the elite? And I tell them like, I defy that stereotype so much. And I said, just come and to everyone, it's something different. To some people, the music is power. To others, it's healing. To others, it's peace and beauty. And whatever it is for you, it is for you. And that's like, no one can take that away from you. And I try to convince them, but they have this, hesitation based on hearing that, oh, it's really just for the elite and or the wealthy or the upper class. And And I always try to get friends to come to hear us. I'll try to get them tickets just so that they can experience something different that, again, you don't need to know anything about, Brahms in order to enjoy his music or any composer. And I think that we need to sometimes defy that way of thinking or that stereotype. I don't like stereotypes anyway. So but I understand and I get it. So I think one of our jobs, regardless of whether it's a smaller orchestra, a smaller ensemble that plays 40 weeks as opposed to a big orchestra that plays 52 weeks, I think at the end of the day, wherever we perform in any city, the outcome is the same in terms of, the audience who live in the metropolitan area will want to come and hear what the orchestra has to offer, and they just want to hear a great performance. And I think that's really the key, and that's our job. And but at the same time, we want to make it comfortable for them. And so I want to spread that message to our management team, and just say, look, I think this is more important than. Yes, I do agree that programming is absolutely important as well. Like if we just program stuff that is either always the same thing over and over again, the same coming from the same canon, then it gets old. And at the same time, I also understand that if we only program modern music, that could scare away some audience members as well. So I think a really nice and beautiful way to do it is to mix it up. And that doesn't mean we should always include a blockbuster or something that's going to be a big audience pleaser and a hit, but definitely give them something, a little bit of everything, so that they can get a taste of new, wonderful music of important composers who are living today. And we can also include the old masters from centuries ago, just like you go to a museum and you can enjoy both the greats and modern art as well. And I think that we need to just make sure it's like you go to a nice restaurant and it's not just about having good food. It's sometimes it's the experience from the moment you step foot in a place, the ambiance, the service, the feel. Are the walls bare? Is there art on the walls? Is there light music in the background, and what kind of music? All these things can add to one's experience. And I think for me, that's a big part of when I enjoy going out and indulge once in a while, and I would like to have an amazing experience, and rather than just oh yeah, I'm just going to go only for the food, which is fine too. And I love some of these, dives and hole in the walls, we can call it that, or mom and pop restaurants, and they're not so fancy, but the food is amazing. Yes, there's something great about that as well.
I watched The Bear and I love that episode. It's a really great metaphor that I hadn't thought of myself. So yeah, that really resonated with me. Can we hear about the process of winning your current position with the Philadelphia Orchestra?
Sure. I often get questions from young musicians who are in the audition circuit and audition scene, and they're trying to really they want to know the secret, right? They're like, what did you do? How did you get your job in Philadelphia? And did you lock yourself up 10 hours a day, for 6 months, starting 6 months before the audition? And I would tell them, no, I if anything, you don't want to deprive yourself of living and things that you love and things that you love to do. And I often express that if you lock yourself up in a practice room and only do that, then that's what you're going to sound like. You're going to sound in a way like a practice machine. But I would share that it's important to still go and do things you love to do, like go to a movie with friends, go hang out with friends, and go to a museum. I've gotten in trouble where a professor, after I gave a master class at their university, and I was grateful that they invited me. They said, "Wait, you told my students that they should go see a movie?" And I said, "Well, but I didn't say to not practice. I just said, I also meant don't only lock yourself up and only practice hours on end. It's important to live life. And I put it this way, like composers were people too, and they expressed many things in their notes and in their music and many emotions. And so what are you going to express in music if you yourself have not also lived life? And that means like learn what love is, pain, joy, sorrow, all those great things that we experience as you know, as we all know as humans, and that will make you a better artist. And if you only practice all the time, that'll make you a better instrumentalist. So my journey in getting to Philadelphia, for me, it was I wanted to make sure at the end of the day of an audition that I want to show, if I flip it around, when I'm listening on the other side to auditions and I'm on the audition committee, at the end of the day, we just want someone to come in and we want the best artist. And that's all. That's who we want to bring on board. I don't even want to use the word hire because I sometimes say, if you're going to go in and try to win a job and try to land a job, then that is what you're going to sound like. So I often say, just go in and musical mission. I repeat that over and over, like just go in. Don't think about what it would be like if you won the job, what you're going to, where you're going to live in what neighborhood, or what you're going to get to tell all your friends and family members. Don't think about any of that stuff. That's only taking away from your music making. Like just go in, no matter what, just have a great mini performance for a mini audience. And that's all it is. And I think if you think of the word audition, we often, our shoulders go up, we get a little bit tight. And I tell them, like, just think of it as a recital, and that could absolutely change your perspective. And so my preparation for the audition here in Philadelphia was exactly that. But I wanted to go in and I wanted to give a great performance on stage of these different excerpts. And we have come to a point sometimes, I believe, with students where they see excerpts as a chore. They see the Mozart Bassoon Concerto as a requirement, like a required piece. And I tell them, no, it's not a required piece, because they would roll their eyes. Oh, this orchestra wants to hear the Mozart again. Of course they do. And I would tell them, like, we're so lucky that Mozart wrote this for us, for our instrument. I said to you, like, the cellos don't get one. And I often say, like, the violas have to share one. They have to do the Sinfonia Concerto. Like, we get our own. And we were the first of the wins. And it also hurts my heart greatly when I think about the folklore, the myth that Mozart wrote apparently 2, maybe even 3 more bassoon concertos, but they're lost somewhere. They're probably sitting in someone's attic somewhere in Europe. But that hurts my heart just to think about that. But nonetheless, the one that we do have, I tell them, just it's still a masterpiece, and just play it like it's such a beautiful musical work, and play it that way, and instead of thinking, of course this orchestra is requiring us to do it, and it becomes almost like homework, like an assignment, rather than something that you can't wait to play. So I try to encourage and urge students to think of it that way, and to have that viewpoint of like, I want you to feel like you can't wait to perform this. You can't wait to get on that stage and play for this little mini audience. And yes, it could be very intimidating. There's a screen or a wall that you play for. You don't get to see faces, but that's where practicing doing so comes in handy. I tell them to play for friends, and I tell them also, don't only play for bassoonists, because and only wind players as well, because committees are made up of string players, brass players, wind players, percussionists. It's a mixed combination of all sorts from all different choirs. And I tell them, if you're going to do a mock audition before something that's coming up, to try to get in many different musicians and instrumentalists as you can, over however many times you want to do a mock audition, but to not just play, certainly not just for bassoon players, but play for all these different mixed instrumentalists, because it at the end of the day, that's who's going to be on the committee anyway. And also that makes you then think, it gives you, I'll put it this way, like a more artistic approach rather than like, okay, bassoonists are looking for this. Bassoonists, they know that this passage is tricky, and they know that this passage needs clarity in the articulation or this or that. But if you come about it as thinking from an artistic point or just like from the viewpoint of an artist and just trying to make great music or great music making, then that is what's going to come through, and that's what's going to shine at the end of the day. So I did all of that in my preparation for Philadelphia. I had a couple of mock auditions for friends and colleagues. I taped myself. I recorded myself. I really believe in that in preparation as well, because there are things I would listen to in the playback and I would say, oh, I thought I was doing more and it wasn't enough. And then, or, oh, I thought I had stopped doing that habit and it's still there. And for example, and, or I thought like my dynamic contrast was bigger, but it's still not good enough. So it would be really helpful, because we're often thinking about our fingers and our instruments and the keys and the vocal and the reed, of course, our embouchure, the air, all of these things. And it's the hardest thing sometimes is to really actively listen while we're multitasking all these different things. And so recording ourselves using an external device is very helpful. However, I also believe that we should not only rely on an external device, and I myself included, need to get better always in active listening while we're playing, which is not always easy to do, especially from afar. I don't know what I sound like, and I'll never know what I sound like 50 feet away or 100 feet away. I could put the best microphone out there, but it certainly won't be the same in terms of what can come through in terms of like trajectory in the sound and the acoustics and the depth of the tone of the instrument, all those things. Sometimes the best microphone in the world would not be able to pick that up. And this is where it comes in handy to ask colleagues and friends to listen to you as well. I can talk about auditions all day, because it's, I can also talk about the preparation of reads, how to brace yourself, the music, also how not to. I often discuss this as well. On the day of an audition, don't go all out in your practice room and warm up and play, everything and, play your heart out. I always say, like, save it. Like, save it that, like, there's, the saying is a great dress rehearsal might not lead to a great performance. And sometimes a not good dress rehearsal would lead to a great performance. And so I would say, like, why give it your all backstage in a little warm-up room? And I feel like you might get a little bit burnt out. So I purposely, myself, I save it for the stage. I have my own warm-up. I'll go through things slowly. I'll do some scales. And then some of the faster passages, I'll play under tempo. And that's it. Anything lyrical on the day of, I don't do, because I feel like, okay, I know them well enough, and I'm just going to save it emotionally to get on that stage. And then I can't wait. Again, I love that phrase. I can't wait to get out there and play and finally just release and play as musically as I can.
Well, we will definitely make sure to swing back to reads. But I'm curious.
Sorry, that was a long answer.
No, it's wonderful. And I wonder, if, like, as woodwind players, especially as double reed players, the Philadelphia Orchestra has such a significant tradition and so much lore. And I wonder if this is a bit esoteric of a question, but if you felt that, if you, experienced that history and significance, if you still do. We've heard many oboists, colleagues of yours on this podcast talk about the concept of a Philadelphia sound. I'm curious if you experienced that or strive toward that as a bassoonist. And so, yeah, I guess I'm kind of asking about the considerations of your workplace and your ensembles specifically, and how you've experienced that over the years.
Another great question. I think that there is something to tradition and something to say about in terms of we can call it making a linear have what is what is the word? You know what I mean? It's like where everything is sort of connected from what was before and what was before that, and so forth and so forth. I think there is some truth to that. It was, Walter Getter and Sol Schoenbach, and then Bernard Garfield, and then myself. And Garfield, for example, did not study with Schoenbach, and I did study with Garfield, and my sound, I would say, is not exactly like theirs, and I think that's a good thing. I don't want to be a clone, and I certainly don't want my students to be a clone of me or of what I do. I think that we all need to have and find that individuality and our own voice, of course. I think that with sound and, bassoonistically speaking, it's so varied, right? And it's a wide spectrum. We can say from really, really, really dark and really, really, really bright. And sometimes over the years too, when I talk about these things and discuss it with colleagues, sometimes we're actually saying the same thing, but we're using opposite words of like what is bright and what is dark. But I was lucky and fortunate enough that the orchestras, whether it was Virginia or Memphis or National Symphony, that they liked the sound that I happened to come with, and I think it's the same for Philadelphia. I don't necessarily believe when we hire someone we're looking for a Philadelphia sound. And speaking of oboe players, I think it's very evident that with our newest hire, a principal oboe of Philippe Tendre, who comes from Europe, and that one could argue that breaks any kind of tradition. But one could also argue that Tabito also came from France at one point, so maybe it's a full cycle. But our principal clarinet player did not also study with his predecessor, and our principal flute player did not study with his predecessor. I'm not going to say that I was offended when when I won this position, they were like, "Oh, it's because you studied with Garfield, right?" And I don't know how to ever respond to that. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess what you're implying is that that's the only reason why I got this job. But I do understand that, of course, people are going to think whatever they think, and I'm okay with that. But I also understand that Garfield had many students before me and many students after me by the time I took the audition. So and I know that some of the other finalists, it did not turn out that way. Actually, I'm really proud of the fact that our second bassoonist, Angela Anderson-Smith, studied with Hertzberg, and mythology and folklore was also that Hertzberg and Garfield didn't get along at all. And here she is playing in the section. She was brought in under Mr. Garfield when he was still principal bassoon. So it wasn't like it wasn't like he had a vendetta and he was out to get his perhaps nemesis, we can call it that. I don't know if any of that is true, but it's just I had heard that they didn't get along, and I was just really happy and proud to hear that at the end of the day it didn't matter. Like he was part of the hiring of Angela, who's wonderful and brilliant, and it didn't matter who she studied with. And I guess why I say I'm proud of that is because it really doesn't matter in terms of borders and boundaries, and that we can overlook these things, and it doesn't matter where we come from, whether Philippe comes from Europe and he has a slightly more European sound than what was before him. I think at the end of the day, I just think if someone has a beautiful sound and they have the ability to also blend when need be, and they're a great musician and artist, I think that's all we're looking for. I honestly, truly believe that, especially here in Philadelphia. I think if anything, from my experiences on committees here, what we look for is that someone comes in and they really, really show us a difference between the different composers and the different excerpts and the different periods of these composers. And, that's what makes audition very auditions very tricky. And I often talk about that as well, that someone will come in and play an excerpt or the Mozart concerto with a great sound, great intonation, great rhythm. They'll turn to page, great sound, great intonation, great rhythm, turn the page again, next excerpt, great sound, great intonation, great rhythm. But what really for us sticks out or stands out is when someone comes in, they play Mozart and it's great, it's beautiful, and then they turn the page and it's Stravinsky, and it doesn't sound like the Mozart, and they really respect the style of Stravinsky, and then you have to go back and play Beethoven, and then the next page it's Bartok, and it's, in a way, one could say it's cruel. I say this as well, like if you're an actor, you're basically saying, okay, now laugh right now cry, now immediately show pain, and in a way that's what they're asking us to do on the stage at these auditions, and we have to show the various different composers, the emotional content, the style of. I like to say as well, Brahms and Tchaikovsky lived around the same time, but completely different. And we should not approach them the exact same way. Well, I'm just going to have my sound, and I'm just going to play it, as musically as I can, whatever that means. And I also like to say that I'm not a Mozartian scholar. I didn't go and study, his manuscripts backwards and forwards in Salzburg, but to my best knowledge, I try to show what is a classical period of in terms of stylistically speaking. Like Mozart, Haydn, I want to give a different sort of character, feel, sound, articulation. It's a little bit, for me, more frontal, more crisp in terms of a ta articulation rather than a da. And something a little bit more fluffy might be Debussy or Ravel, something more French. It's a little bit more brush tongue rather than hit on, like, again, Haydn and something that's much more clear. Needless to say, that doesn't mean Ravel is not clear. It's just, to me, it's like a different kind of paintbrush stroke, if you will, rather than something that's a little bit more pointed in Mozart and Haydn. So these are like little examples and or hints is what I'm talking about. And I'm proud of that fact. I think in Philadelphia, that's what we look for more. That's what we're looking for, rather than, okay, does this person have the Philadelphia sound? I think as long as they have a really great sound, and what defines great is really different. My current students, I have 5 different students, and they all have great sounds, and they all absolutely do not sound alike. And I love that. I absolutely love that. But I can say that they all have a great sound, and that I'm very, I'm at peace knowing that, like, I feel good when they go out into the world and we launch them out, that I feel like they're in a really good, they're in good shape, and they're in a good position to be able to really do what they want to do musically with their sounds. But I think first and foremost, we can say it this way, to get your foot in the door is, I believe you have to have a great sound. And then what you do with that sound, on top of that, is everything. And again, that's when it goes back to style and the context of the music. And do you know the score? Do you know the function, your function in that moment of the score? Are you counter melody? Are you main melody? Are you accompaniment, like Pulcinella, the gavotte, right? It's like, are you, which, like, it's interesting that a lot of that can be very obvious and could be expressed, and it's, in a way, that is what is in place of a job interview, since we're not allowed to speak in or at auditions, right? So that said, we have to be able to say everything we know about what we know about through music, through our notes, and through our instruments. And I think that is everything. So going back to your question about Philadelphia sound, I think that it just means that, like, I believe Philadelphia sound is just, in my definition, is someone with a great sound. It's a beautiful sound. It can blend, but it can also sing out when needed, and that it's. I think for us to be able to play well with others is a big factor as well, and I think Philippe had demonstrated that, even though his sound was different.
Yeah, our discussion with him was really great, and yeah, very he just had a great perspective about exactly what you're saying, the universality
Mm.
of this approach. And switching directions a little bit, you mentioned your students and you teach at Temple and the Curtis Institute. And of course, Curtis is one of the most coveted and competitive music programs nationally. And so I would imagine that it's pretty regular. You have more people auditioning for you to study than you have spots available. And so, kind of similar to what you were discussing with auditions and listening to auditions, but how do you go about making those decisions at the student level, where I would guess potential is also a variable that you want to consider? How do you weigh those decisions?
That's again, you have like so many great questions one after another. It's amazing and quite impressive. I think when it comes to students, for me, what I look for is yes, we can use the word potential, but what I really want to know is what their, I don't know how to put it, like what they're looking for in terms of the big picture. Like I'll say this in a way that sounds funny, but and I only mean this in a positive way. I'm not looking for a bassoon jock. Like I don't want someone to come in and be like, look, I have the fastest trills in the West, and look, I can quadruple tongue faster than anyone. Like that to me, those are party tricks. That's not impressive for me. So what I look for is who has something to say in terms of a musical voice, and are they feeling music or is it just executed? Another huge factor for me is workability. Do I see potential not in just their talent? Do I see potential in us working well together? And sometimes someone could be brilliant and they come in, but you can just tell somehow from the way they respond, because sometimes for me at auditions, I like to work with them one-on-one and I give a little bit of feedback, and you can tell if a student is very open to hearing what anyone has to say, whether it's a coach, a teacher, or a conductor. And for, you know, in terms of their reaction, I can, I'll say it this way, we can learn a lot. And someone could come in and they'll be like, yeah, I know. And they have this very know-it-all feeling. And then I that makes me a little nervous. And someone who may not be as advanced, but they're still advanced enough, but who has an amazing outlook and approach. And my motto in life, and I mean this, is like I love to say, like, I'm a student for life, and I still am a student for life. And even after playing in this orchestra for 2 decades, I still feel that way, and I've never felt like I've made it. And sometimes I'm bewildered because like there'll be a young musician who'll come in and they already act as if they've made it, and they've already, they're already acting. But I also understand, I get like sometimes, nerves come into play and that they need to put up a front to overcome those performance nerves or audition nerves. So that's not like everything, but that I will be honest and won't lie that is a huge part of my selecting process. Is attitude is a really big factor for me. I like to say it this way: there are 3 types of students, and I'll put it this way: like the first type could be someone who goes above and beyond and does more than asked of you, and they might even beg for more work. They might beg like, please give me more. And then you have the student in the middle who does the assignments, who does the work and does everything assigned or asked of them, and they're fine too. And then you have the students who just try to glide by, and they just I'm often I scratch my head about those students, because it's like, what I ask, like, what is the point here? What is your goal? Is your goal just to get a piece of paper at the end of 4 years and say, look, I went to this good school? Is that, and you get to hang that on your wall? Is that the goal here? And so, and of course, there's actually a fourth type, is those who don't do any work at all, and don't show up prepared and are often yeah, they just don't care and they're indifferent. But the first type for me, I will say time and time again, they have always done really well in life. And I don't mean it in the sense of I measure it by their successes. I don't mean it that way, but it just happens to be that that is often, they go hand in hand. The ones who go above and beyond and they show up and they do more than you ask for, and they ask for more, even more on top of that, are the ones who time and time again are in really amazing positions in their careers and have fantastic careers. And then the ones, again, the ones who show up and do the work, they're okay too. And I don't mean it like if you're one who only does the assignment, that means you're not going to make it. And I don't even know what that means, whether you're going to make it or not. And we also have, I believe in late bloomers. Sometimes there are people who they were okay at school and then they disappear for a couple of years and then something clicks. And I'm a big believer in that. And I have witnessed that. I've seen that as well. But in terms of like selecting students, I think to me, their outlook in life is a huge factor. And then sound, as I was talking about earlier, with regards to Philadelphia sound, whatever that means, sound is also important to me because if at that point they just have a different kind of sound that I feel like is going to be a huge metamorphosis, or it'll take a lot to change, that makes me a little nervous because I feel like I don't want to necessarily change someone's sound too much because they got to that point and they might be very happy with their sound. And who am I to say, well, I don't like your sound, right? I mean, they might like their sound and I shouldn't say, well, you can come if you change your sound. I don't want to be that way. So I think that also, that sort of connection also needs to take place in terms of, I'll put it this way, there's an audition, and this is what I mean about my colleagues. We're not looking for a particular sound, but there are times when there might be someone with a sound that is just so different, and we have a hard time. We have trouble getting past that sound and being able to hear the phrasing and all the amazing preparatory work that they did leading up to the audition. If I have trouble getting past the sound, then I can't really, it's hard for me to judge them as musicians because that's all I'm listening to. And then, for example, what I was talking about with Philippe, it's a very different sound, but it's a beautiful sound. So it's okay if it's different, but it still caught my ear. I like to say it this way: capture your audience with your sound, and then keep your audience with your musicality. And I really do believe in that. So when it comes to young students and grabbing them, I like to see a little bit of potential in all those three factors: your sound, what kind of musicianship you might already have, and then of course the attitude, which is everything to me.
It's a double read podcast, and so we have to ask about reads. Would you tell us about your setup, anything really that you want to share? Our listeners love getting into the nitty-gritty, getting into the weeds about the read.
Yep. I think the bottom line is, and we all know this, we all have different, physiques, different physical makeup, and we cannot possibly have a one great read that one size fits all, right? We know this. And we also know this with regards to the various different instruments out there. What might be a great read for one instrument, one bassoon, may not work well for another instrument, as we also know this. And so the combination of the way our embouchures are formed, how big or small our chops might be, our mouth might be, how we position ourselves, how we blow into it, how we feel, and also in combination with the vocal and the instrument, I think that it might take a long time sometimes, or not, to find the right combination. So that being said, I don't believe in my students all need to learn how to make the read that I currently play on, or my reads. but I do show them or help them with what I do, how I make a read. And I always say, like, take it or leave it. Like you can, or take some things and leave some things. And I also am a big proponent for making reads together. That's how I learned how I made my reads through my classmates, and we often had read sessions while I was in school. And yes, Mr. Goltzer taught me how to make his reads, and Mr. Garfield showed me his style of reads. But I don't make the same kind of read as either of them. And I have, we can call it, developed, my own reads for myself. But I do know that there must be a little bit of everything from everyone along the way that I have picked up from here, there, everywhere, and also from master classes that I partook in, and also even from not just my classmates, even my students. Sometimes I learn from them, and I love making reads with others, because for me it's like, if you make reads with four other people, then that's everything is four times faster in terms of trial and error. And someone will announce, "Oh my God, I just ruined a read," and and we're all like, "Well, what did you do? Where did you take off?" And then they'll show you, and then you learn not to do that. And then someone else will say, "Oh my God, I just made this read so much better," and then everyone tries it and plays it, and it's incredible. And then you want to know what they did, what area of the read they worked on, and or what was their concept, and that is also great for note taking. And so all the bassoon listeners out there, like, make reads. What do we say? We have these different names of groups for different animals, right? Like a pack of wolves, or I know that there are a bunch of funny ones out there for giraffes. Actually, it's a tower of giraffes, which is pretty funny
No,
to me.
really?
Yes, it's really great. I don't know if you've ever seen all those different names of animals. And I should look it up, because it's some of them. I loved your reactions, your reaction of like, no, really, but anyway, of groups of animals. It's I remember, I saw something about, like, I think apes, for example, was another one that's pretty funny. Oh, it's a shrewdness of apes. Um,
Amazing.
I know it's quite awesome. And yeah. So anyway, there are these different names of these different things, and it's really great. And it's a smack of jellyfish. Um, Another one that's really funny is ravens. A group of ravens is called an unkindness.
Oh, yes.
Is
So
that
some group of bassoonists out there can form
right?
can
So
form a
whatever we want to
kindness
call
of
ourselves,
bassoonists.
yeah, whatever herd or like similar thereof, a herd of bassoonists. I do believe, like, making reads together, and it's fun, and it's a great way to connect and socialize and bond. But for me, it's the quickest way to, like, for trial and error and taking notes. I just bottom line, and I have learned a lot during my school days that way, much more so than any singular teacher has ever taught me about reads. So for me, I'll say my ultimate product is, the read that I found is my combination of everything and from everyone, whom I have learned from, and that's what is my current read. And I think that that's how bassoon players or students should find their own reads in terms of what works for them. You learn the different techniques, of course. You learn what does what. Like, we all know, I think it's universal knowledge, common knowledge, that taking off the back of the reed helps the low notes, right? Brings down the intonation and the articulation in the low notes, for example. And taking off the sides helps the spreadiness of the reed, and taking off the center makes it more vibrant, and the opposite of that. So these are of course, general rules or rules of thumbs. And then as we go further, you start figuring out what's a better shape or shaper for you, what's a better length for you, in combination again with your instrument and your embouchure. So again, at the end of the day, I know that a lot of my European friends, they all buy reeds today, and I'm very jealous of them. They all have great reed makers who are loyal to them. I do have someone who makes my blanks. I'm very loyal. I'm very grateful for his loyalty in making my blanks, and it has saved me a lot of time. And all I do is clip them, and then I scrape the reed down from there. But just the whole first step process of going from a piece of cane to a blank. I buy them from someone. His name is Krasimir Ivanov. I'm not making a commercial here. I'm just saying and he lives in Albany, and I'm very grateful. I do know that he makes commercial reeds as well. But for me, because I have a very, I'll call it more of a distinct and unique scrape. More of a parallel scrape. I like to just make my own reeds. So it's a combination of I have someone make them, but I finish them, versus whether instead of having someone just make my reeds, or I just make everything from scratch. So that's where I'm at today with reed making.
I love that. And I have the name for a group of bassoonists. Are you ready?
Yes.
It's a bundle of bassoonists.
Oh, I love that.
Okay.
Yeah. Also because it goes hand in hand with cane.
Exactly.
That's perfect. I love it. Let's do that. Plus, it's the same acronym letter B, as bassoon. So a bundle of bassoonists is great.
Yeah, we should start that. It's a new thing.
It's a new thing. Let's make it happen.
Can we hear a favorite memory of a past performance?
I have a few, and I'll put it this way: it depends on what we call favorite or memorable. I'll never forget right after 9/11 happened, the orchestra was about to go on an American tour through the Midwest and the West Coast. And we all got together, and the orchestra was absolutely afraid of flying naturally. And this was literally like 2 days after the event happened. But we all decided and we voted that we're going to go anyway. And I must say, like, we went to places like Chicago and Arizona and Nevada and California, and concert after concert, I would look out and I would see people weeping at these concert halls. And that to me, I will never forget. It was the first time I really felt where music brought people together to heal. And I was fighting back tears every night at the reaction of the audience members. And it wasn't like, oh, just one or two people being moved by the beautiful music. It was like a collective, like so many people out there were just constantly, I'm actually getting a little choked up talking about it right now, but I will never forget that. So that's one memorable. Then there are, of course, riveting performances that were great. I did, and just in terms of a solo, I am grateful to Clarice Assad, who wrote a beautiful, beautiful bassoon work this last year, and we premiered it. And I loved the piece so much, and I am also like I was so happy to get to play it and perform it. And I told her, like, I think this is such a great work for our instrument, and I thanked her for that. And I really believe it's one of those pieces that bassoonists, once it becomes published, that they should learn. And I'm not just trying to sell it because it was written, for the orchestra and because I like her music, but I'm saying this, completely honestly and sincerely, that it is a really, really incredible work. And so that's in terms of a past performance, a recent one that I really loved and enjoyed, and I would say was very memorable as well.
Oh, I love that. So our perhaps greatest partner in the act of music making is our instrument. So could you tell us about your bassoon and how it came into your life?
Sure. I currently play on a 16,000 Heckel. I know that they are sought after today, so I count my blessings. for the longest time, I played on an early 7000 series Heckel. That's what I played on in National Symphony. That's what I won my audition on here in Philadelphia and played on for probably a good 15 years. Then I played a bunch of other instruments while I also continued on the seven. I played on I forget the name. It's like a Munich bassoon, and I definitely played on a Walter bassoon, which I loved, and I played on a Yamaha at one point. But I would say for a good 5 to 7 years, I went back and forth between my 7000 and the Walter bassoon pretty regularly. I would say I played on it half the time each. And but I came to realize that the 7000 felt more and more like a little toy because it just felt like, it was very high maintenance and it felt like it could break at any point because it was so, it's from 1931. And the Walter was it's a modern instrument. It's much heavier, thicker wall. And so it felt in a way like a tank. So I was going back and forth between what felt like a little, tinky little instrument on my seven that I felt like I could break on my hands, and actually sometimes even during a performance a key would fall off and it would give me a mini heart attack, and I would have to quickly find a way to get it back on in a concert. And the
I'm
Walter.
so sorry to interrupt you, but I just, as an oboist, you are describing an oboe right now. This dinky little thing that could break at any moment.
At any moment, exactly. So my 7000, I would say, though I loved it, it had a more compact sound and it was high maintenance, I think, because of its age. And then the Walter I really liked the sound a lot. It just felt to me very uniform, and it was harder. I'm a big believer in making or trying to make different shades and colors in the sound. And though I enjoyed the Walter, it just took a lot more to do that in terms of finding different colors. And then I tried a 15,000 and from a friend and colleague, and I was like, wow, this is great. And because I had heard that the Heckles were getting bigger and bigger as they were, getting later in the late 13s and 14,000s. And then I heard that starting the 15s and the 16s, they went back towards the middle. And once I tried one, I was like, oh my God, this is the answer. This is right in between my seven and the Walter. And so I sold both of them, and the 16 was available at the time. I immediately had put my name on the Heckel list. I believe right now it's a 17-year waiting list. The one I had put down at this point almost 8 years ago is now apparently ready in 2029. So I do have my name on the list at Heckel currently, but I have since been playing since 2017 on a 16,000 Heckel. I am not a Heckel snob by any means, but I do love this instrument and I say that because I know that some of my former students are playing on Puchner instruments, and they're amazing bassoons as well. And I love those instruments, and I really did love my Walter. I'm not going to lie. So I'm not going to say that ultimately Heckel always, takes the cake. But it's really what I'm playing on right now.
You've already outlined phenomenal advice for us all to learn from, but our standard closing question is, what advice do you have for a young musician who aspires to have a career like yours?
The advice I would say today is to have balance, take care of both. It sounds funny to say this, like there are two of you, and half is your bassoon world, bassoonistically speaking, your instrument. And the other half is you as a musician, and I'll say it like as an artist. And to take care of both. Yes, it's important to practice. It's important to do all the things you need to do in terms of getting better on your instrument. Yes, do your scales, do your thirds, do your intervals, do arpeggios, learn articulation, whether you have a fast single tongue or you need to learn how to double tongue, and all the great things in terms of bassoon playing, in terms of the instrument. And at the same time, continue to grow. And I love this word, cultivate. Continue to cultivate yourself as a musician, as an artist. And what that means is please don't only listen to bassoon music. Don't go only on YouTube and listen to bassoon players. I think, yes, there are many great bassoon musicians, and I don't mean it that like, oh, don't listen to bassoonists because they're not good musicians. I don't mean that at all. But what I'm actually saying is that a lot of the great music that was written in the world is not necessarily just on her instrument. Like, listen to string quartets, listen to opera, listen to singers, listen to Schubert Lieder, listen to all these different things that will help you grow as a musician and as an artist. Also, if you listen to just bassoon music, you're going to start listening to the technical aspect of the recording and of the instrumentalist, right? But and of course, yes, you'll listen to the great other stuff like phrasing and style and everything. But when you're listening to other music, especially, I'm a huge fan of singers. You really learn so much more in terms of artistry and aside from that, in terms of taking care of yourself as an artist, also become very familiar with the standard repertoire, and just so that it can just be there as the bare basics, the I'll call it the bare bones or the building blocks of what we end up doing. And if you're going to have a career in either orchestral playing or solo playing or teaching or chamber music, you should really start to learn a lot of the music and get it in your veins, get it, absorb it, listen to it, and don't just listen to it once and check a box. What I mean to listen to it is if you don't know Beethoven Symphony No. 2, maybe just take a few days, listen to it. You don't have to sit there attentively. Just have it on in the background. You can do it while you do house chores or anything, or take a walk. And by the end of the week, you're going to already start humming along. And then you've become familiar with that music, and then move on to the next one. I do this a lot, and I did this a lot with operas when I was a student at school. I remember very clearly myself, my own schedule was every Monday night and Tuesday night was when I made read blanks. That was my schedule when I was a student. I just decided that was what I was going to do. And while making those read blanks, I would always put something on in the background that I didn't know. Like I'm going to listen to Mozart's Abduction from the Seraglio this week. And again, I would say to myself, I'm not just going to listen to it once. I really want to get to know it so that I really become familiar with it, so that I can almost hum along and sing along. And I truly, honestly believe that has helped me in terms of feeling more comfortable in my own skin as a musician. That has helped me in terms of confidence and even showing up in an audition, not just thinking, okay, I got this, guys. I know how to play this on my bassoon and I know how to play all the notes. But it gave me the added confidence of feeling like I understand the shapings and the phrasings a lot within musical works. And I tried to then apply that to approaching these musical excerpts, and I combined them. So my greatest advice is to take care of both, have balance. Yes, take care of yourself as an instrumentalist. Make sure you do all that good practicing, good stuff in there, and also cultivate yourself as an artist. Listen to your friends and colleagues play and perform on other instruments. If someone's playing in a string quartet later in the week, show up, support your friend, but also show up and listen and learn, new music that you haven't heard before, and let it seep into your system and let it stay there. And especially when you're young, I cannot say this enough. There are things today I'm not showing off. I could play that I had learned when I was a teenager. There are a few Vivaldi concertos I can play, probably by heart, and I haven't looked at them for years. That's not a bragging thing. My point is, I also played a concerto by David Ludwig a few years ago, which I love so much, called Pictures from a Floating World. And I remember working really hard on it, and I memorized it. But if today you asked me to play a whole page of it without looking, and I set myself to memorize it, 6 years ago. I probably couldn't play a whole page without looking at the music. And I even remember internalizing it, which is another word I love. Internalize the music and approach these pieces that way, not just through your bassoon, not just through your instrument. Take it in, internalize it, musically sing it through. I'm a big fan of singing through my music that I'm working on, any piece that I'm working on in my practicing. And then I want to eventually go back to playing it and then singing, and then eventually, hopefully, that it becomes one, and that in a way, I know it sounds like a sappy thing to say, in a way, your instrument is like your voice. And I feel that when you're young, take in as much as you can, both playing wise and most especially or equally listening wise.
Mr. Matsukawa, thank you so much for spending this time with us on Double Reed Dish. This was so phenomenal, and I cannot wait to share it with our listeners.
Oh, thank you. That means the world to me. And I cannot say thank you enough for having me. I'm, again, so flattered and honored. Hoping we can all get together and play trios or duets or any of the fun things above anytime. It would be
Well, be careful what you ask for, because we will do it.
Okay, let's do it. We'll be a bundle of, well, actually, if we
Is it still a bundle if I get to come?
Yes, we'll call it an abundance of musicians.
There you go.
An abundance.
We hope you enjoyed that interview with Daniel Matsukawa. Of course you did. Follow us on social media. You don't want to miss out on seeing all these amazing read entries. So you need to be hooked up to our
really
social
don't.
media. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And I would say rate and review, but it doesn't matter if you do anymore or not. Just kidding.
Not really, though.
We will still be back on October 15th for a brand new episode. Galit, who will we be talking to then?
We will be talking to the amazing Nicholas Tischerman, second and associate principal oboe with the Colorado Symphony. Jackie, let's end this nerd parade.
Go make Halloween read decorating entries.
Everything else can wait.